Hey guys, it's Techco Freak here, and welcome to episode 38 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. And today we're going to be talking about randomness. So we're going to break this video up into two parts. We're going to do a part 1 and a part 2. Part 1 is going to be talking about all the functions, printing out some numbers, just kind of seeing what kind of random values we get and stuff. We'll also be talking about seeds. And then after that, in part 2, we'll be actually implementing some of these random, these functions that generate random numbers and kind of show you guys a bit of how you can use it in your level. So let's go ahead and get started here. Just to cover this, I do this every video, just for those that might have not watched the one of the previous videos. We're going to be running these functions from a trigger area that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my level here, and we have this trigger area right here called trigger 1, and we have a collide callback on this trigger area here. And it calls back, when the player collides with it, it calls back to a function on collide player trigger 1. And that goes back to our script here. And as you can see, this is the function we're calling on collide player trigger 1. And what this does is checks to see if alt state is equal to 1. If it's equal to 1, that means that the player just entered the trigger area. And then all we're doing here is just printing out a message and then setting the player's running to be true so that he could run. And then we return false so that the trigger area doesn't execute anymore. We only want it to execute the one time. And if anything else, if alt state is anything else, we don't really care. Just return false. We mainly just care that the player entered the area. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get started on what functions we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to talk about seeds last. First, we're going to talk about just regular old generating numbers, and then we'll talk about how we can set a seed and then kind of get those number generation to be equal for every seed, to be the same for every seed. So let's go ahead and get a new line here. First thing you want to do is type in cmath_rnd. And these are all the random functions we can use. We have ones for integers, we have ones for floats, we have colors, we have vectors, and we'll be talking about all of these and how you can get what inputs it takes and what output you're going to get from them. Just so you know which ones return what. If you look at the very top here, you should see it should say like int, or it should say C color or float. This tells you what these functions return back to you, and then with knowing that, you can save these functions to a variable and then use that number or vector or whatever it is, however you want. So first, let's just go ahead and talk about the most basic one, probably an integer. So we're gonna go ahead and do cmath rand rec1, and this one will generate us a random number equal to in between or equal to any of the numbers that we provide here. So if we put 1, 10 here, it's gonna generate any number between 1 and 10, including 1 and 10. So it could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 5, it could be 4, it could be any of the numbers in between, including 1 and 10. And then we can just put we could put a semicolon at the end here. This one only takes integers, and it will give us back a integer value between or including those ranges here. And we can go ahead and save those values. We can say int, and then say this could be any name we want. Let's go ahead and just call it rand int equals. So what we're doing here, we'll go ahead and hit save here. So what we're doing here is we're creating an integer variable, an int variable called rand int. This could be whatever you want, of course. I called it rand int because it just makes sense. And then we're saving the value that we get from that random integer into this variable here. So now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and print out this value so we can see it. And when we launch our game, we can see the random number that's generated. So let's do CLUX for CLUX, add debug message, and we're going to go ahead and just add a debug message so that we can see that number. And you can't do this here. Some people might think, okay, rand in, it's going to print out rand in. Well, rand in is an integer. This is going to give you an error because CLUX add debug message is expecting you to provide a string, not an integer, not a float, not a vector. It's expecting a string. So what we can do though is say C string to string, and then now we can put in whatever number we want here, and it will convert it to us into a string that is then printable by the debug message. So we can go ahead and just put in our rand int here, And there we go. And now it's going to go ahead and print out the number for us. But I want to put a little message beforehand here, just so we know what number it is. If we print out a whole bunch of numbers, we're not going to know what is what. We're just going to have to remember the order. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and print out a message with this, and we'll say random int is, and then we'll put a colon here, and we'll put space here, and we got to put plus. The plus will just combine the two strings here, so it's going to combine this string random int is with this string here, which is the number, and that way we can see it visually once we launch up the game and we execute this. So now let's go ahead and keep talking about the other ones. So in here, we'll go ahead and put in the values beforehand. We're going to do the float one, the random float value. So we're going to do float, and we're going to say rand float equals, and we're going to say C math, and we're going to say rand rec f. And this one will generate a random float. For those that are not completely familiar with what a float is, it's pretty much just a decimal number. And we're going to generate it for the same range as above, but we'll say 1.0, and then we'll say 10.0, and then we'll go ahead and close this out with a semicolon. So this will give us a number between 1 and 10, including 1 and 10. And it can be a decimal number, so you can get something like 7.457 or something like that, 3.14, anything like that. Any number, any float variable, it can generate. So any decimal number between those two could be generated here. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll actually just go ahead and copy this here and paste it right here, because it's going to be pretty much the same. We'll change this to float. We'll say random float is, and we'll change this to rand float, and that will be our that will print out our float there. And let's go ahead and move on with this. So next, let's talk about the color, the C color one. So we'll say C color. So we're gonna save this to a variable as well. So we're gonna say C color, and we're gonna say rand color equals, and then we'll go ahead and type in C math. And we want to go ahead and do rand rec color here, and we'll hit enter here. Remember, you can see it says return C color. That's why we put C color at the beginning here for our variable name when we create our variable name. So now we're gonna go ahead and hit enter there. And let me actually zoom you guys in here. And what we want to do is go ahead and provide two colors. What I'm thinking of doing is I'll provide two colors in the RGB spectrum, and we'll try and cover the whole scale, any random red, green, or blue color. So we'll go ahead and say C color, and we'll put parentheses here. I gotta click in here, C color, and we'll say parentheses in here. And then we can provide four variables here, four numbers. The last one would be alpha. We're only going to be talking about RGB here, so I'm only going to provide three values here, just RG and B. And then we're going to randomize just those numbers. So again, this would be R, G, and then B. But of course, we want to put actual values in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 0.0. I'm going to put 0.0, and I'm going to put 0.0 here. And this will be the bottom of our color spectrum that we're going to be selecting. And we're going to say C color, and we're going to create another one here. And let's do 1.0, and then we'll do 1.0, and then we'll do 1.0. And for those that might not be too familiar with color, we talked about it a little bit in our advanced lighting episode, where we did I showed you guys the color wheel and how you guys can like calculate the values and stuff like that. So I'd encourage you guys to go check out that video if you haven't already done so. I'll probably put a link in the description, but I believe it's episode 22, advanced lighting. So I'll check that one out. We did talk about C color here, but basically here we're just going to generate three random colors, R, G, and B, between the ranges of 0 to 1, 0 to 1, and 0 to 1 for all three colors. And then that's going to be saved to our rand color function here, our rand color variable here. Let's go ahead and go to a new line here. So now that we have those saved, let's go ahead and try and print out those messages. So this one's going to be a bit different from the previous ones, because you can't just print C color, because that's not a string. You need to actually specify the values. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say first, let's just put our string here and say random color is what random colors are, and then we'll put a space here and we'll hit space here and we're gonna say plus again. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use C string here as well. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get each independent variable here from this C color function, from the C color class, and we're gonna go ahead and put it out here. So remember our color, we saved it here to rand color. So we're gonna say rand color, and then we're gonna put dot. And then here you can see the 4 variables here that you can select: R, G, B, and A for alpha. And again, we only put RGB here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put all 3 values here. We're gonna hit R here. So we're gonna say rand color dot R. So whatever value that generated between 0 and 1, it's gonna be printing out here with a string. Again, we gotta include it in the C string function, and it'll be printing out here. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do that for the rest of the colors here. So we're gonna say plus. And we're gonna say, we're gonna actually put a space here. So we're gonna put like a blank space so that they're not all stuck together. And we'll do plus again here. And then we'll go ahead and copy this again. And we'll do this for the next 2 colors here as well. So we'll do that. And then we'll do plus space, again, space here again, and then another plus. And we will paste in the last one here. So that should print out all 3, and there'll be a space between each one here. And of course, we got to change this. This should be R, G. This should be B over here. So now we have R, G, and B all printing out here. So we can see all 3 colors. Of course, you probably don't need to see the actual value if you were like using the color, because most likely, let's say you wanted to randomize the color of a light, like we talked about changing colors in the advanced lighting episode. You could, instead of creating your own color, you could just use this function right here, and it would generate a random color for your light. So that's already a pretty cool idea. You want to generate random colors for lights that you have in your level, you can go for it. You can generate a C color by using this function here. But we will have the values print out so we know that they're working properly and they're randomized. So let's make sure we put a semicolon at the end here as well. So now let's move on to the next ones. So the next ones are going to be the vectors. So we're going to say C vector 2F. We'll be talking about the 2F one first. And we'll just say rand vect 2. We'll say equals. Again, that could be whatever name. I just named it that because it kind of makes sense. And we'll say C math. And we say underscore rand rec vector 2F here. And now we provide 2 vectors that we want. So for those not completely familiar with what vectors are, they're usually used to indicate position. They can be used to like indicate like direction as well, like force. If you want to apply force in particular directions, you would use this as well. So used for pretty much anything regarding the grid on the level, the X, the Y, or the Z. So the 2F is only 2D coordinates, so this will only give you an X and a Y. Useful when you want to stay on like a plane, or when staying in one single direction. But the 3D one, the 3F, is the one you would use for 3D. So let's go ahead and just kind of show you guys what we put in here. So we say C vector 2F, and parentheses is going to look similar to the C color up here, but we only need to put 2 values in here. So we're going to say 0.0. And we're going to say comma space 0.0, and then we'll do comma space, and now we need another C vector 2F here, just like that one. So say C vector 2F parentheses, and now let's go ahead and put like 10. Let's imagine we were like these were like grid coordinates. Just be more realistic to the grid coordinates. So we can say like 10.0. Of course, we're not doing anything with this in this episode, but we will want to see those numbers. So now this will generate a C vector 2F, where the X value is anything between 0 and 10, and then the Y value is anything between 0 and 10. So this will do that generation for us. And then to go ahead and print these values out, it's pretty much going to be the same as this one here, except it's going to have one less variable here. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. Let's say random vector 2F is, and then we go ahead and let's remove one of these here. We're going to only need 2 of these C strings here. And instead of rand color, of course, we want to do rand vec2. And then we hit dot, you can see there's your X and there's your Y. So we'll go ahead and hit X. X will be the first value here, the first random generated value there. And then we'll go ahead and put that here as well and put dot. And then we want Y this time. So we're going to go ahead and put Y. And that will print out our X and our Y. And we can see our vector there. So let's go ahead and talk about the next one, which is going to be the 3D version of this. The randvec3 is what we're going to call it. So we're going to say C vector, and we're going to say 3F. And then we're going to call it pretty much the same thing as this one, right? But we're going to say 3, randvec3. And we're going to say equals, and we'll say cmath. And then we're going to say randrect, let's type out the whole thing here. Randrect vector 3F. That's this one right here. And now we need a C vector 3Fs instead. So we're going to say C vector 3F. And we'll put parentheses here. And we're going to pretty much put the same values as the 2F one, but we need 3 for X, Y, and Z. So we're going to say 0.0, comma 0.0, comma 0.0, and that's our X or Y and our Z. And we'll put a comma, space, and we'll pretty much do the same thing again. We'll say C vector, but we're going to do 3F, parentheses, and then we'll do same thing, 10.0, 10.0, 10.0, and 10.0 here. And then we'll go ahead and close that out with a semicolon there. So so this will generate a random vector 3F for all three of these, the X, the Y, and the Z, between 0 and 10, 0 and 10, 0 and 10. And of course, if you want individual ones randomized, like you could set this to like 5.0, and then the Y, the Z here will be anything between 5 and 10 rather than 0 and 10. So you could definitely do that if you need to do that, and there are cases where you might want to do that. And this will generate our vector 3F and save it to our randvec variable here. So again, we're going to go to a new line. We're going to go ahead and copy the debug message here that we're printing out from the colors. And we're going to say vector 3F here. The random vector 3F is. And since we do have 3 values this time, we're going to keep this exactly the way it is. But we're going to, of course, change out each of these ones here. We're going to say randvec3. And then if we put dot here, you can see there's X, Y, and Z this time, because this is a three-dimensional vector. So we're going to say X. And then for this one, we're pretty much going to do the same thing. I might actually just copy this here. We're going to say X. We're going to say, we're going to put this one to be Y. And then this one will go ahead and be Z. And there it is. So those are our vectors. So now we have 2 ones to talk about. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit different from these up here, but pretty much same concepts when it comes to randomness. Much simpler to use, actually. And this one's going to be C math underscore random. And then you'll see circle edge point and sphere edge point. So they're two ones here. So we're gonna do random circle edge point, and I might actually pull up my paint application here just to kind of show you guys what this is here. So I'm gonna bring it over here. Let me shrink this here so you guys can see it a little better here. And what we're gonna do is this is gonna be random circle edge point. So this is going to be any edge on a circle, and to kind of explain that here, and you have to provide a radius here. So actually, let's mention that we have to provide a radius for this circle that it's going to grab an edge point out of. So let's just say the circle is let's say 5.0f here, and we'll go ahead and close it out with a semicolon here. And let's say that's what it is there. So then if we go ahead and just draw out a circle here, this is a 2-dimensional circle. It doesn't say sphere, it says circle. So what this means pretty much is that we have a radius here of the value that we provided here, which is 5, right? So if we go ahead and write it out here, we'll say r equals 5 here. So this is the radius of the circle. So it will choose a random edge on this circle. So it will be anywhere here, anywhere here, anywhere here, anywhere on the edge of the circle. It will randomly pick any spot on the edge of the circle, and it will give you whatever that is in positional wise. So if it's this one here, then it's going to give you whatever the X and the Y is for this. So these are 2D coordinates, of course, because we're not talking about a sphere. We're talking about a circle. So this will get you your X and your Y randomly. So this will produce a C vector to F here. So we go back here and you wanted to save this. You'd save this the same way we did with the vector to F. We'd say C vector to F, and we'll say circle. We'll say rand circle edge or something like that. I'm probably, yeah, let's write it out all the way. Random circle edge. We'll say equals C math random circle edge point. And if you wanted to print it, you could, but I'm not going to bother printing it because it's pretty much going to produce a very similar output to this one right here. So we'll just go ahead and skip that here. If you wanted to get a variable like that, you could, and it definitely has its uses when you're creating custom stories, like maybe something with choosing a direction that you need something to go to from a core point or core item or something like that, like an entity in the middle, and you need to choose a direction or something like that on a plane or in a sphere or something like that. To move on to the next one, we'll say C vector 3F, and we'll say rand sphere point, and we'll say equals, and now we're going to do C math, and we're going to talk about the very last one here that we have left to talk about, and of course we got to talk about seeds still. So rand, and we're going to do sphere surface point here, and we have to provide a radius as well. So let's go ahead and provide a radius here. We'll say 5.00 F, and we'll close this out with a semicolon. And I'll bring up paint again just to show you this one as well. But if you understood the first example, it should make sense for the sphere. It's pretty much the same thing. If we go ahead and draw a circle here, right? And let's go ahead and get a curved line here, and then we'll go ahead and draw one here, and then pull this here just to kind of show that this is indeed a sphere. So we'll go ahead and do this, and we'll bend this way, or I guess not, but that's fine enough. So this is a sphere, and there's a center point in the middle. We can go ahead and grab the pen. There's a center point in the middle, and if it goes out to the edge, you have 3 dimensions here. It's like an actual sphere. Just imagine like planet Earth. It's a 3-dimensional sphere, and you can choose any point on the surface of this sphere. So like any point on the surface of the Earth, you know, just like that. So it'll choose any random point in this 3-dimensional space, not inside, but only on the surface of the sphere. And then it will give you those coordinates. So it will, of course, give you an X, a Y, and a Z, since it is in 3 directions here, and it will give you 3 variables, which is a C vector 3F that we'd be getting back here. So let's go ahead and close that out. We're done with paint for today, but again, that will give you a C vector 3F, any point on that sphere. You know, if you want to randomly choose a point on the in the 3-dimensional space around the player, around an object, this would be perfect. Same thing with the 2-dimensional one. If you want to choose it in a 2-dimensional plane, rather, this would be perfect too. Of course, we won't be using these today, so we're just going to go ahead and comment it out. But definitely wanted to show you guys those, as those could have its uses for sure. But mainly we'll be printing out these here and testing them out. So now that we're done here, those are all the functions I wanted to get covered today. So we're going to go ahead and start up our game. We're going to check out all these numbers here, and then we're going to come back and talk about one last thing, which is going to be about seeds and how we can generate randomness in a consistent way. And let's go ahead and start up our game first and check out these values here. Alright, so here we are in our levels. So again, there's our trigger area is right here. Once we walk into it and we collide with the trigger area, our code should execute here, and it's going to print out a bunch of random values down here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll step through, and boom, there's our numbers. There's our in, it's 8, our float is 2.569, and then we have our colors. And if we want to go ahead and like regenerate those numbers, that's pretty simple. We can just go options, debug options, and then hit reload here. And this will reload the map here. And we can go ahead and step through this again and generate some new numbers. And there it is, random colors, random our vector 2F, random vector 3F, and we can keep walking through, and we'll keep generating it. And if you notice, if you keep an eye on it, you'll notice every time we go through, the number is different. This time our int is 9, our float is 4.59. So now we're going to talk about how we can set a seed, and every time we walk through this plane, we will get the same RNG every time, the same randomness every time, thus the same numbers every single time. So let's go ahead and go back into our script file here, and let's talk about seeds. Alright, so here we are back in our script here. So now let's talk about how we can set a seed. So for those that are that need an explanation about what seeds are, if anybody's played Minecraft, I'm sure there's a lot of you that's played Minecraft out there, you'll know that if you go ahead and create a world and you put in a seed with a certain value, let's say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or something like that, and you generate the world, you'll get the world generated in a particular way. Now if you to take that same seed and give it to your friend, and they put that in their Minecraft, same version of Minecraft and everything, you know, and they generate the world, they will generate the same and exact world as you. And this is not to say that the randomness is different. This is just to say that the randomness is consistent. So all the randomness for the game will be generated from that core seed point that you provided. All the randomness was generated from that point and that seed, and then that is what allows you to generate the world identically initially. And then of course the randomness past that point can vary based on different things, but it's all based on that original seed value. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set a seed value of our own in Amnesia Rebirth that we can use to generate the same RNG every time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put a new line here, and before we generate anything that's random here, we're going to put a line here. We're going to say cmath underscore, and we're going to say randomize is this one right here. And what it does, it lets you put in a seed for which all your randomness would generate from. So let's just put like 1, 2, 3, 4. It is an integer that needs to be, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll go ahead and close it out with a semicolon. So now our seed value is 1, 2, 3, 4, and we will generate all these values with this same exact seed here, thus generating the same way every time in the game. And of course, if you were to do this, put these same values here and put the same seed right here in your own custom story, in your own script file, you will get this exact same RNG that we're about to get when we launch up the game. So let's go ahead and save this up. Let's go ahead and launch up our game, and let's go ahead and check that out. Alright, so here we are back in our custom story. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and step through here and generate some numbers. Let's take note of some of these numbers. We have 9, we have 1.058. Let's take note of those two numbers there, right? And let's go ahead and go back. Let's go ahead and hit options, debug, reload. And now we're going to go ahead and step through again. We're going to go ahead and step through, and then we get 9.0, 1.0. 5.8, same thing as before. Let's do it one more time just for good measure. We'll go debug, reload, and we'll go ahead and step through. And again, 9.0, 1.058. So the RNG is consistent every time. The RNG is the same because it's all generated from that original seed that we provided, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how you can set a seed to generate randomness from. Of course, lots of uses for this. If you have a story that's heavily RNG dependent, like you have a lot of random numbers generated in your level to produce like enemies in different places, unlock certain doors and stuff like that. If you add the functionality for a seed, you can make sure that everybody has the same experience if they want it. So for example, if like you share the custom story with one person, they have one experience with the game because of the randomness in your level, and then you go ahead and you give that to somebody else and you put that same seed that they used in there, then they will get the same RNG, thus, you know, the same scares, the same enemies spawning, the same doors are locked or unlocked, whatever it is. All of it is possible by setting that seed. So very useful, very good for fun ideas in the future. If you have different video idea or different custom story ideas, it'd be perfect to use this. Lots of fun stuff you can do with it. So that's gonna wrap up today's episode, but in the next episode we're gonna talk about how we can use these values and actually use them to do something in our custom story. I know we're just printing out numbers here, not the most interesting thing, but if we go ahead and take these and implement it into our custom story in different ways, we can go ahead and accomplish some interesting things. So look forward to that. That's part 2. I hope you guys have a great day. Don't forget to leave a comment, and don't forget to leave a like on the video. And if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and have a good day, guys. Bye.